I refused to let my parents move into my guest house after they kicked me out at 16 for being gay. Now they're facing foreclosure and everyone says I'm being petty for not helping them. I, 32 have been struggling with this situation and honestly need some outside perspective. I guess I should start from the beginning. I grew up in a small town in Georgia, the kind where everyone knows everyone else's business and your social life revolves around church. My father wasn't just a Southern Baptist minister, he was the minister, the one everyone in town looked up to, the one who gave the keynote speech at every prayer breakfast and whose opinion was treated like gospel, pun not intended. Growing up, I knew I was different. By 13, I was sure I was gay, but I also knew that in our household, that wasn't just a sin, it was the sin. I remember sitting in church every Sunday, listening to my father preach about the homosexual agenda and feeling like each word was a knife in my chest. My mother would squeeze my hand during these sermons, probably thinking I was moved by the Holy Spirit, when really I was trying not to have a panic attack. When I was 16, I made the mistake of using our shared family computer to message another boy from school. Looking back, I was so careful, always deleted the history, used incognito mode. But I forgot one time. Just once. That's all it took. My sister, 14 at the time, found the messages. I still remember her face when she came into my room, holding printed copies of my private conversations. I had to tell them, she said, tears streaming down her face. The Bible says if you know about a sin and don't speak up, you're just as guilty. My father came home early from a church council meeting. I was doing AP calculus homework. I can still see the half-finished equation on my paper when he burst in. He didn't yell. Almost wish he had. Instead, he spoke in this terrifyingly calm voice, like he was addressing a stranger who'd broken into our house. "You have 30 minutes, he said, throwing a duffel bag at me. "Pack whatever fits. Anything left behind goes to Goodwill." Then he added, "And don't bother taking your car keys. The car's in my name." I started packing, moving like I was underwater. My mother appeared in the doorway, clutching her cross necklace, the one I'd given her for Mother's Day the year before. "We raised you better than this," she kept saying, over and over. "What will people think? What will the congregation say?" That's what hurt the most, I think. Not even wondering if I'd be okay, just worried about their reputation. My sister watched from her room as I filled that bag. She was crying, but she also had this look of righteous satisfaction, like she'd done God's work. I tried to grab my phone, but Dad said he'd already called and canceled the service. I had $43 in my wallet and whatever I could fit in that duffel bag. "I love you," I tried to say as I walked out. My father's response? "Love the sinner, hate the sin. But the sinner needs to leave this house." The last thing I heard as I walked down our pristine suburban driveway was my father calling the locksmith. I walked 4 miles to my best friend Marcus's house. It was November, already dark, and I kept thinking about all the homework I hadn't finished. Isn't it weird what your mind fixates on in a crisis? I was homeless, but I was worried about AP Calc. Marcus's parents, Tom and Diana, didn't even hesitate. Diana took one look at me standing on their porch with my duffel bag and tears frozen on my face, and just said, "Your room is already made up, sweetheart." They'd known, somehow. Maybe they'd seen how I looked at Marcus's older brother, who, ironically, is also gay and is now married to a wonderful man. They didn't just take me in, they saved me. Tom, a lawyer, helped me become legally emancipated. Diana, a high school counselor at a different school, helped me transfer to her school to avoid the gossip at my old one. They helped me apply for scholarships, took me to college visits, and most importantly, showed me that family isn't about blood, it's about love. The next few years were hard. Really hard. I worked every job I could find, bagging groceries, delivering pizzas, tutoring rich kids in math. I got into Georgia Tech with a partial scholarship, but still had to work nearly full-time to afford it. There were nights I cried myself to sleep in my tiny apartment, not because I missed my parents, but because I missed having parents. My sister went to UGA and had what she calls her wake-up call during a gender studies class she took to fill a humanities requirement. She reached out during her sophomore year, sending a long email apologizing for her role in everything. We started slowly, emails, then texts, then video calls. Now she's one of my closest friends and strongest allies. She even volunteers for PFLAG. I worked my ass off in college, got my MBA, and eventually started my own tech consulting firm. Turns out being the kid who had to figure everything out on his own makes you pretty good at solving problems for other people. The business took off, and 2 years ago, I bought my dream house, a beautiful Craftsman with a separate guest house that I converted into a home office. Now, At 32, I have a life my 16-year-old self couldn't have imagined. A successful business, a beautiful home, an amazing boyfriend, James, 34, a pediatric surgeon, and a chosen family that loves me unconditionally. Marcus's parents still have me over every Sunday for dinner, and they were front row at my MBA graduation. Then, last month, everything I'd carefully built started shaking. My sister called me crying. Through her sobs, I learned that our father's church had been involved in a massive financial scandal. Apparently, Dad had taken out loans against the church property in their house for renovations, but the contractor was running a scam. The church is bankrupt, Dad's been forced to resign, and they're facing foreclosure on their house. They've changed, my sister insisted. Mom goes to PFLAG meetings now. Dad even performed a gay wedding last year. They talk about you all the time, about how sorry they are. Then came the ask, they need somewhere to stay, just until they figure things out. Your guest house is perfect, and maybe this could be a chance to heal. I didn't let her finish. No, I said. Absolutely not. That's when the flood started. My Aunt Catherine, Mom's sister, has been calling nonstop. They're your parents, she keeps saying. They made a mistake, but they've changed. You can't let them be homeless. Funny how Aunt Catherine, who has a 4-bedroom house for just her and her husband, doesn't seem to have room for them. My cousins have been posting passive-aggressive Bible quotes about forgiveness on Facebook. One even had the audacity to post, "Pride is a sin too." Sometimes those who claim to be victims become victimizers. I blocked her after that one. Even James, my boyfriend of 2 years, thinks I should consider it. It could be healing, he said last night over dinner. And they're not getting any younger. Do you want to regret not trying when they're gone? I looked at him, really looked at him, and asked, would you be saying this if they'd thrown you out at 16? Left you homeless? Never checked to see if you were alive or dead for 16 years? He didn't have an answer for that. The thing is, I remember every detail of that night. I remember the temperature, 42 degrees. I remember what I was wearing, my favorite blue sweater that I'd bought with my first paycheck from my summer job. I remember my mother's face as she watched me pack, how she clutched her cross necklace but never once reached out to hold me. They made their choice. They chose their reputation over their child. They chose their interpretation of a book over their son's life and safety. They never called to check if I was okay. Never sent a birthday card. Never tried to find out if I was alive or dead, housed or homeless, safe or in danger. The only contact they ever initiated was a Christmas card 8 years ago that said, "We're still praying for you." No apology. No acknowledgement. Just the implication that I still needed to be fixed. But now that they need something from me, they're sorry? Now that they need shelter, they've changed? My friend Marcus, yes, same Marcus from when I was 16, said something that stuck with me: forgiveness is free, but trust has to be earned. They haven't earned anything from me. But still, I lie awake at night wondering, am I being petty? Should I be the bigger person? Am I letting bitterness poison my own heart? Tom and Diana, my real parents, as far as I'm concerned, gently suggested that helping them might help me heal too, but also emphasized that I don't owe them anything. Your home is your safe space, Diana said. Don't let anyone guilt you into compromising that. I have the means to help. The guest house is just sitting there, mostly being used as my home office and occasional crash pad for friends. But every time I think about them living there, about having to see them every day, about having to listen to their explanations or apologies or whatever they think will make this right, I feel physically ill. I've spent 16 years building myself back up from the ground. Building a life, a career, a family of choice. Do I want to risk all of that stability for the people who shattered it in the first place? Edit 1. Holy shit, this blew up overnight. Thank you all for the awards and supportive comments. To address some common questions. 1. Yes, they have other options. My Aunt Catherine, who's been calling me cruel, has plenty of space but doesn't have the room right now. 3 other relatives have spare rooms but are suddenly renovating or might sell soon. 2. My sister lives in a small 2-bedroom apartment with her husband and 2 kids. Taking them in isn't feasible for her, which I completely understand. 3. No, they haven't tried to contact me directly about this. Everything has come through my sister or other family members. Mom apparently cries when my name is mentioned but can't pick up the phone herself. 4. James, my boyfriend, comes from a wealthy, liberal California family who celebrated when he came out at 14. I love him dearly, but he has no frame of reference for family rejection or conditional love. 5. For those asking, yes, I'm in therapy. Have been for years. Childhood trauma doesn't just disappear because you're successful now. Edit 2. To the people DMing me Bible verses about forgiveness, save your energy. I've heard them all before. Yes, even that one from Matthew you think is particularly relevant. Edit 3. Since this keeps coming up, yes, they did try to contact me once, 8 years ago. They sent a Christmas card that said we're still praying for you. No apology, no acknowledgement of what they did. I sent it back unopened with a note, save your prayers for someone who needs them. Edit 4. Stop suggesting I test them by having them apologize publicly on Facebook or to their church community first. I'm not interested in public humiliation or revenge. I just want peace. Final update. After reading through hundreds of comments and spending a long session with my therapist, I've gained some clarity. My therapist helped me realize that my immediate no wasn't spite or pettiness, it was self-preservation. The body keeps score, as they say, and mine is screaming danger. I had a long talk with my sister last night. I explained that while I appreciate her trying to help our parents, I need to maintain my boundaries. Instead of offering them housing, I've offered 2. 1. Help my sister research affordable housing options in their area. 2. Contribute to their first month's rent somewhere, not as their son, but as my sister's brother who wants to help her carry this burden. 3. Connect them with resources for seniors facing housing insecurity. She cried but said she understands. I just want everyone to be okay, she said. I told her everyone is okay, just not in the way she pictured. James and I had a long talk too. After reading some of your comments, he really took time to imagine what it would feel like to be thrown away by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally. He admitted he was thinking about this from a place of privilege and apologized for pressuring me. To everyone saying but they're still your parents, biology doesn't equal obligation. They stopped being my parents the night they decided their reputation at church was more important than their child's well-being. Tom and Diana are my parents. They're the ones who showed up, who loved unconditionally, who supported and celebrated me. Thank you all for helping me feel less crazy about this. Sometimes it's hard to trust your instincts when everyone is telling you you're wrong. But I'm going to stick to my decision. My home is my safe space, and I'm not giving that up. For those asking, yes, I'm having dinner with Tom and Diana tonight. Diana's making her famous lasagna, and we're celebrating my company's latest contract. That's what real family does, they show up for the good times and the bad, no conditions attached. And to my sister, who I know will eventually find this post, hi, Sarah, I love you. Thank you for growing and learning and becoming an ally. You're proof that people can change. But you can't change them for them. Final update. It's been 6 months since my original post, and since I'm still getting messages asking what happened, I thought I should provide one final update. A lot has happened, and I want to thank everyone who offered support and advice during one of the hardest decisions of my life. First, my parents did lose their house. Despite my aunt's dramatic predictions about them ending up homeless, they're now living in a small apartment in a 55-plus community. My sister helped them find it, and true to my word, I contributed to their first month's rent, anonymously, through my sister. They don't know the money came from me, and that's how I prefer it. The unexpected plot twist? My Aunt Catherine, who spent weeks calling me cruel for not taking them in, blocked my parents' numbers when they actually asked to stay with her. Funny how that worked out. The same people who were preaching forgiveness to me suddenly had all kinds of excuses when it was their turn to help. About 2 months after my post, my parents did try to contact me directly. They sent a letter to my office, which honestly felt like a boundary violation. They had to do some digging to find that address. I'm going to share part of it because I think it illustrates why I made the right decision. Dear, we hope this letter finds you well. We've heard through Sarah that you've become quite successful. We're proud that despite your choices, you've managed to do well for yourself. As you may know, we're going through a difficult time, and we've been doing a lot of thinking and praying. We've even attended some PFLAG meetings, though we find some of their views extreme. We're willing to try to accept your lifestyle if you're willing to help us in our time of need. I stopped reading after that. Despite your choices? Willing to try to accept your lifestyle? This wasn't an apology, it was a negotiation. They were still framing my sexuality as a choice, still positioning themselves as the ones graciously willing to tolerate me in exchange for housing. The letter went straight into the shredder. On a more positive note, remember James, my boyfriend who initially thought I should consider helping them? He proposed last month. The best part? We got engaged at Tom and Diana's house, during our regular Sunday dinner. Diana had helped him plan the whole thing, and Tom had already given him his blessing weeks before. That's what family looks like. My sister was there too, She and her husband had driven down for the weekend, supposedly for a regular visit. When James got down on one knee, she was filming the whole thing, crying happy tears. Later that night, she hugged me and said, "I'm so glad you didn't let them move in. You deserve this happiness without their darkness shadowing it." Speaking of my business, it's grown even more. I've actually converted the guest house into a proper office now, with space for 3 new employees. Kind of poetic, the space that could have dragged me back into my past is now actively building my future. The most healing part of these past 6 months? I finally took Tom and Diana up on their offer to look through the box of stuff they'd saved from my teenage years. Turns out, in the weeks after I was kicked out, Diana went to my parents' house while they were at church and rescued some of my things from the Goodwill pile: photo albums, academic awards, my childhood stuffed bear, even my college admission letters. She'd kept them all this time, waiting until I was ready. Looking through that box with James, I realized something. I've been wrong about one thing. I keep saying I had to rebuild my life from nothing after being kicked out at 16. But that's not true. I had Tom and Diana. I had Marcus. I had people who chose me, who showed me what real love looks like. I wasn't rebuilding from nothing, I was building on a foundation of genuine love and acceptance. To everyone still struggling with similar situations, your worth isn't determined by the people who failed to love you properly. Build your chosen family. Create your own safe spaces. Success and happiness are possible, and you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep warm the people who left you out in the cold. Final thoughts. Someone messaged me recently saying I must still be angry to maintain such strict boundaries. But that's not it at all. I'm not angry anymore, I'm at peace. I'm not punishing my parents, I'm protecting my peace. There's a difference. The scared 16-year-old who walked out of that house with a duffel bag couldn't have imagined the life I have now. He couldn't have pictured having Sunday dinners with chosen family, planning a wedding with a wonderful man, or running a successful business. But he knew, even then, that he deserved better than conditional love. He was right. This will be my last update. Thank you all for being part of my healing journey.